Welcome to the Desire to Dream podcast. I'm your host, Lo Wilder. The vision of this podcast is to provide tools on how to become successful in your finances, business, leadership development, and much more. A little bit about me: I grew up in the hood, homeless at the age of 14. I made a choice not to become a product of my environment. And today, I am a successful businessman, community leader, and inspirational speaker. It is my desire to encourage and empower you to unlock your greatness. So tune in and enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Desire to Dream podcast. I'm your host, Lo Wilder. And today, man, I got a special guest, man, a good friend of mine's, Hamptonian, and just doing major things in the DMV area. My brother, Brandon Northington. What's going on, my good brother?
Lauren, good morning, man. How are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm doing great, man. Listen, it's great to have you, man. It's been a little bit, so we definitely going to chop it up with the people, man. How things going in the DMV?
Man, things are going well. I can't complain. Just landed in a good position, almost kind of by chance. Just grinding every day, still learning, still reading, still seeking to achieve more.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Listen, let people know the story, right? Brandon is doing great things, man. He's a lawyer, just recently nominated. What was it? 40 under 40 for Black attorneys. Is it for Black attorneys in DMV?
Black attorneys, yes.
Black attorneys. So he's in the DMV, man, in a big city. Went to Hampton. He's from Kentucky. But give people the story, the background, how you landed in Hampton, and basically what ultimately gave you the desire to dream and become a lawyer.
Got it. So, when I was 6 years old, I told my mom I wanted to be a preacher. She asked why. I said, because they dress nicely and they work once a week. She said, Brandon, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
I said, okay, I'll be a lawyer. And, from that point on, everything was kind of geared towards being an attorney. And so I was in mock trial, I was in teen court, I did speech and debate all the way, middle school and high school. When you're 6 years old and you say you want to be a lawyer, people push you in that direction,
Right.
And so, you say it enough, you start to believe it. And so, from a very small town, Georgetown, Kentucky, right outside of Lexington, I always like to give the example. My town was so small, or is so small, that at the time, there's only one high school. So I always knew where I was going. We had two middle schools and one high school.
Right.
Your friends, you may split up, but you all meet up at the end. And so, okay, now you're in high school. So now, where are you going to go to college? Right. And I never want to appear unprepared, right, even at a young age. And so my initial go-to answer used to be Morehouse. And an art teacher of mine told me about Morehouse. She said Martin Luther King went there. It was HBCU. I still wasn't quite sure what that meant.
Right.
But I said Morehouse. I was like, all right, well, it's good enough for Martin Luther King, good enough for me.
Right.
And so that was the story. And then my mom's best friend, who I call Auntie Faye, she said, Brandon, you should go to Hampton. You'll love it. And I said, Hampton? I never heard of it. I said, Hampton? What's Hampton?
Right.
And so I go to the website, and when I saw that picture of the peninsula in the water, and I used to go to the website every day. I was like, it's beautiful. It's only the water. I love water. I mean, it was I was like, I gotta go there.
Right.
And so did a college tour my sophomore year. We went to Morehouse. I was born in Atlanta. I was familiar with the AUC.
Gotcha.
But I still didn't know too much about it, right? So we went down there for a college tour, and I was like, you know what, Morehouse probably isn't for me. And so ended up on my parents, was in my senior year, and I was already dead set on going to Hampton at this point. But my senior year, I had applied to two schools, Hampton and Howard.
Right.
And my parents, my fall break, they took me on a tour. So we were supposed to go to Hampton and then go to Howard. Went to Hampton. I mean, it was like I fell in love all over again. Actually being on campus, seeing students, the water, everything. And I loved it so much. I asked my mom, I said, hey, Ma, will you please cancel my tour at Howard? Let's stay here longer.
Wow.
And we spent an extra day in Hampton. We went to like the Williamsburg area. We were in Hampton, went down to the beach. I just thought, I was like, this is it. This is
I'm
where I'm
home.
Go.
I'm home by the sea, baby.
That was it. And spoiler alert, I went to Hampton,
Right.
and I'm so glad that I did. My first time actually going to Howard wasn't until my sophomore year, going down for the Hampton Howard football game.
Right.
And Howard's nice, right? Great school in an amazing city that I'm currently near. But I know coming from a small town, DC would have been overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
Hampton
Right.
was that
Right.
perfect transition. It's segmented from the city. It's its own entity where DC, I mean, excuse me, where Howard is in the city, right?
Right. Right.
Um, I'm not some small country kid where I've never been to a city, right? Louisville's up the street. I go to one all the time, but it's something different about living in it, being in it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed the time. I listen. We could. This whole podcast could be about Hampton if you don't stop me. But yeah. So no. Went to Hampton. Absolutely loved it.
Man, that's awesome. And you know what, man? I didn't realize you had those schools lined up, because same thing with me. I remember working out in high school, and it was going into my senior year, and one of my previous coaches was like, "You need to go to HBCU," and I was like, "Man, what is that?" Like that didn't. I'm like, "Can you explain what that is?" And started talking about Grambling and whatnot. But as you know, my story, Bill Cosby stepped in after I was already committed to one of the local schools and sent me to Morehouse, Howard, and then Hampton was last. Bro,
Yeah.
same thing. Fell in love with Hampton. As soon as I went through I saw the water, went to the Emancipation Tree, man, and it was family, bro. And I came from a small city, but still, it was that great transition. Hampton, obviously, a lot of Black excellence, right? A lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of great people that came out of it, people that we know very closely. I mean, we're going to get into your, the frat life, right? And you got a brother of yours, man, DJ Tay James, out there doing things. Justin Bieber just touring the world and just taking over, man. We got actors. It's just amazing of the talent that came out of Hampton. When coming from a small town, and obviously you had this dream already, so it was burning inside of you since you were 6 years old. But when you went to Hampton, and got to collaborate with people there that was already, on a mission as well. What were some of the things that triggered for you? Because it's one thing to have that dream when you're young, because everybody had it, right? We were all
Yeah.
pulled into elementary school and said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer." But then at some point, people start realizing, yeah, I'm probably not going to be a doctor, right? But for you, and you were in Hampton, like, was there any doubt? Was there any moments in the time when you were there that you were like, man, probably want to do something else, or you was locked in all the way?
Yeah. So going back a little bit to high school, I'll say going to Hampton for me was very important because you know being in Georgetown, I felt that not all, but to the majority of the Black kids, they were just cool. And, I was cool. I hung out with her and everyone knew me, but I cared a lot about my grades, where I didn't find like everyone cared as much about their grades that I did. And to the
Mm,
white kids, unfortunately, I was still Black. So I felt like I really moved in between worlds. And so getting to Hampton, I really found my place. I found my people, my village, my tribe, right? And
right.
so there were people that looked like me that were sitting beside me and also in front of the classroom. And it really helped my transition into college and really wanting to move forward and continue to achieve the goals that I set for myself. Um, there was never doubt if I was going to be an attorney. Well, let me say
Hmm.
that. Not let me say no, there's no doubt. I didn't know what else I would do. I mean, at that
Right.
point, I'd been saying it for 10 plus years,
Right.
and if you say something enough, you'll start to believe it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. That's just it. The family's counting on me to be a lawyer, and but then it's like, well, what kind of lawyer are you going to be? I really didn't know, but again, not wanting to seem unprepared, I'd say like a corporate attorney. I didn't even know what that meant. It's just
Right.
something to say. It sounded good. It was a nice placeholder to get people off my back to seem like I was prepared.
Right.
But I struggled with the LSAT, and so my LSAT scores were average to low,
Hmm.
and so then it was let me apply to all these law schools, and so um, I didn't know where I wanted to go to law school. Like it was, like looking back on it, I should have done a lot more research. I should have done a lot more. But it's okay. Where am I going to go to law school? So I was dating a young lady at Hampton. So I was like, all right, well, let me stay nearby. All right.
Right.
So I was looking, yeah, not the reason to apply to any law school. So I applied to like all the schools in the DC area because I'm like, okay, DC is not too far from Hampton. We could still see each other, whatever. And so I didn't get into any of them. I was like, what?
Right.
And so my best friend Terrence, and obviously you know Terrence,
Yep.
he had applied to FAMU and he got in and he was like, well, no, I don't know if he had got in at that point. Maybe he had, I can't remember. But he was like, Brandon applied to FAMU. And I was like, I don't know anything about FAMU law. I I don't want to go there. And this is the thing. Again, I was a senior and I was being lazy. They
Yeah.
required an extra essay that no other law school required. Like, and I'm like, who are you, FAMU, to require an extra
Right.
essay? Like, I have
weren't
to
weren't even
write.
tiered. They weren't even tiered at the time, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I have to do more work than you go to apply to a school I'm not even interested in.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I applied, and getting those rejection letters was tough.
Yeah.
Um, it in reality it shouldn't have been because I didn't meet the student profile for many of them. Howard's did hurt. It was like I at least didn't get waitlisted to Howard.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, man, I applied to Georgetown on a whim. I applied to Harvard. Again, there's no whims with law school. Like I shouldn't have done it. I wasted my
Right.
money and my time. I'm just out here just applying willy nilly, like just whatever. I'm gonna be a lawyer. Y'all should want me.
Right.
That's not necessary. I mean, it's a good attitude, but it doesn't really work like that in
Right.
admissions.
Yeah.
And so one day, me and Terrence, we happened to go to the mailbox, and I guess he saw the envelope before I did. He knew what it looked like, and he grabbed it and just started running through the parking lot. I was like, "We're going to fam," and I was kind of like, "Yay!" Like I didn't.
A little
There was no
underwhelmed a little
excitement,
bit.
right? I was like, okay, at my first acceptance, like okay, and I was hoping to maybe use that to pivot and transition to somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work. But I'm forever grateful to FAMU for two reasons. One, well, I guess three. I guess two. One, to give me a chance when no one else would, right?
Right. Right.
And then almost most importantly for me, I met my wife at FAMU,
Right.
and so
Shout
I
out to
went.
Erica. Shout out to
Oh
Erica.
yeah,
Saying to the queen.
yes, yes. And but yeah, those getting those denial letters,
Mm,
those were some of the darkest days for me at Hampton
yeah.
because again, I felt like the pressures of the world. Everyone's like, the family. Oh, everyone knows Brandon's gonna be a lawyer. He's doing
Right.
so well in school, and then I'm not getting accepted to law school. And
Yeah.
to the point, it's like, well, then what am I gonna do? I
Right.
I don't have a plan B. Plan B is to enforce plan A. I'm gonna
Right.
be a lawyer. Like that's. But yeah, no. I kept working, and again, I did something that I didn't expect to do. Apply to a school that I wasn't necessarily interested in,
Right.
but to accomplish the goal that I had set for myself.
Yeah, man. It's kind of like it sounded, to me like your faith was already, or your plan was already like put in place, right? So you just had to walk it, man. And that's what happens with life. Sometimes, life doesn't go according to your plan. And it was a struggle. Like, yeah, you got the degree, you in law school, but it wasn't easy, man. It was financially, it wasn't easy. Law school, for those that probably already know, is expensive. And FAMU, which is weird, it's like not like every other school. It's what was it, like 30 something thousand a year for someone that was out of state, but if you was in state, it was like $10,000. It was like, man, what kind of deal is that?
Yeah.
And so, but it was a struggle, man. And you fought through it. You fought through the adversity. um Man, what kept you going? What kept you pushing and hoping?
And really, it was that mustard seed of faith, is that I applied to these schools. I took the LSAT twice. I took a class my junior year, and my score did go up. And so when I took that first LSAT that summer before my senior year, my score was pretty decent. Although I did have some kind of things on my mind, and I wasn't as focused as I should have been. Then I
Mm,
tried to take the LSAT again at the beginning of my senior year. Well, now I'm 21. I'm only taking like a handful of classes, not focused at all. My score went down. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna rock with what I got and just go. And prayerfully, my grades will carry me, my activities, my leadership, my community service, these other things will carry me. I'm like, this one test can't just define me. When law school, I mean, it really does.
yeah.
But I mean, even looking back, I struggled with the ACT and SAT just to get into college. I
Hmm.
took the SAT once and said, "Oh, this is not for me," and I took the ACT like 4 or 5 times.
Mm,
And it definitely had an effect on me because it's like, oh, if I didn't do well on that test, how can I do well on the LSAT? And then
right.
I had to really try to push those thoughts out of my head when dealing with the bar exam. I was like, I cannot take the bar exam 5 times. I cannot let my past failures dictate my future. Um, but no, really just having applied, looking for those opportunities, telling folks what I was doing to launch new. Even I guess maybe for me, worst case, if that hadn't worked out, I had applied to the Clio program and been accepted. The Clio program, similar to the LEAP program that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And there's three types of students that go to the Clio program: students that have a law school and just want to prepare, students who are in a law school but want to get to a better law school, and students that don't have a law school who want to get in. So I was in that middle criteria. And again, had I done better in Clio, I could have ended up somewhere else. But I'm glad things worked out like they did, because there were some talks of me trying to, kind of negotiate going to the Catholic for law school.
Mm-hmm.
Again, still with this idea of being in the DC area, but they were very expensive, and there was no in and out of state. It was just the price. It was what it was, and I said, okay, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to pay for law school. Period. But that I
Right.
can assure you, I don't know how I'm going to pay for. But yeah, it was a struggle for sure, and I think it was a good lesson. Because yeah, it's you only need one yes, and I
Right.
legit
Right.
got one yes, and
Mm.
that's all it took. Like I really, everyone's, oh, you only need one. No, I only got one, and made it work. And all those schools that said no, it's their loss, right?
Right.
Because I know folks. Well, I don't know. I can say I'm sure there are folks who were my same year who either didn't pass the bar on their first time or maybe still haven't passed the bar. And
Right.
so, that one test, I couldn't let it define me. And I think that that's the reason I went so hard when preparing for the bar exam, because I knew it was just like I have to pass this my first time. I gave
Right.
it my all. I left it all on the table. I didn't know I didn't know what I should have done for the LSAT. I didn't know what I should have done when looking at law school. But by the time I got to the bar exam, I was like, oh, I know what I need to do to
Mm-hmm.
pass this test, and I went all out.
Yeah. Man, that's amazing, bro. And it's like you said, when it's all stacked up against you, bro, you gotta dig deeper. You gotta be like, look, I gotta do this, right? You gotta be
Yeah.
determined and just push through it, man. So, now, like, obviously, you got the degree, man. You're a lawyer, man. You've done a lot of great stuff in the community, man. He's part of a fraternity. You do a lot of great community outreach. You've been doing that since you were younger. What does it look like today, man? Like, what is your day to day? I mean, what's your goals, man? You still out there killing it, man, but I'm sure you still got these lofty goals that you're trying to set now.
Yeah. So for me, I got really two big goals for the year. One is just to be in the best shape of my life, right? And to really, you know, work out and watch and maintain what I'm putting in my body.
Right.
The second is, financial freedom. And I feel like these are two goals that, most people have or work on. And I usually set my goals around my birthday, and then kind of do a check-in around the new year. There was a third that I'm near completing, and you and I will talk more about that later. But
Hmm.
yeah, those are the two biggest. That's what I really focus on. And then there's other things. I'm taking a speed reading class. I want to learn how to play mahjong, right? Something random and fun.
Right.
I'm really big into movies, and so right now it would be an Oscar season. There's 10 movies that are nominated for Best Picture. I've seen 8 of the 10. And I have ultimately the goal of watching every movie that's won Best Picture.
Mm.
So there are 93. I have about 30 left that I haven't seen, and so I
Okay.
want to work on seeing those. And so I try to have these serious and career goals, but also some fun goals as well, right?
Right.
And then for work, at the firm, I mean things are going great at the firm. Like I said, I'm glad I ended up where I am. Will I stay there forever? Um, Probably not, right? I mean, that's just that's not how millennials are trained, right? We
Right.
don't stay anywhere forever.
Right.
But right now I love it. It's great. It's providing the freedom and flexibility I love. I work remotely, which I love,
Man, that's
which is
amazing.
due to the pandemic.
Right.
Um, I hope it can remain that way as I've been performing. I know I've been crushing it, knocking it out the park, and so
Awesome.
we'll go from there. And then
Man.
to spend as much time with loved ones as possible. I
Yeah.
think that's another big one for me for sure.
Man, that's awesome, man. And it's important, man, for those that are listening. It's important that you balance things out, man. Like, I didn't realize that until a few years ago. I was getting burnt out because all I was doing was just trying to execute, as my shirt say, right? Execute, execute, execute. But I wasn't I wasn't like enjoying anything, man. Like, and I had to find that balance, to be able to do things. So I'm like you, bro. Movies is my thing. My wife and I, we enjoy watching, different movies and balance things out. Speaking of movies though, so what's your top three, man? What you got? What you got, man, right now? Top
Top
three
three
for
ever or like Oscars? What we talking?
yeah, top three. I would say top three ever, man. Let's go for the whole thing, man. I
Top
mean,
three ever.
oh, let's do this. Let's do this because that can be difficult. Let's do
I have a
top.
list already,
Oh,
so
you
I
do? All
keep
right, so
I
hit me
keep
with it.
that list on
Hey,
me.
hey, hit me with it, bro. Hit me with it.
My movies. Let me find my movie list for you. Okay, so yeah, I was ranking these. So I think my all time favorite is Coming to America. I love
Love
comedies.
it.
It's and I remember seeing it as a little kid the first time with my dad. I mean,
Hmm.
I could watch Coming to America over and over. I'm laughing
Right.
like it's my first time. I absolutely love Coming to America. My next would be Friday.
Mm,
Um, when I growing up in Georgetown, when we moved there, we could not have cable. There was no access, right? So all we
right.
had were VHS movies, and so we just used to watch movies over and over and over and over. And Friday was on the list. We would watch it over and over again. I could quote Friday from beginning to end, and love it. And I think I'm in the comedy genre. The Wood would probably be my third favorite.
Ooh,
Um,
classics, boy.
love The Wood. It has that love story in there. It's
Right.
funny. This adolescent story growing, boyhood to manhood.
Is you
Um,
cuz or bloods?
right. Like
Yeah,
what?
yeah, you like right, cuz what?
Right. Yeah.
Man, that was a classic, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, man. Those are all great movies, man. What do you think about the second Coming to America? A lot of people were disappointed. I loved it, man. I mean, what were your thoughts, man? Being that was top movie of all time.
Yeah. As a fan, it was nice, all the nods to the original, right? I didn't
Right,
have these super high expectations. It's hard to recreate, I think,
right.
greatness,
Hmm,
especially
hmm.
on that level. And like, how are we making a sequel? Um, especially that many years later.
Right, right.
Um, it was good. Well, I've seen it once. Will I watch it again? Maybe if it's on, it's something I'm going to continue to watch over and over. I appreciate it. I think it was more so kind of for the fans,
Yeah,
just to give something and to shout out the original more than to make this new story.
right, right. And shout out to the who was the costume lady. She was from Hampton University.
Yeah.
Lady that did all they were all fire. The costumes was fire, man. The dance scenes was good for me, man. But Coming to America, definitely a classic for me, man. Love that movie. Like you, bro. I could watch it, a bunch of times, man. It's awesome. Before we go, because I know we about to cut it. If there's someone right now that's struggling, trying to turn their dream into a reality, right? And they're up against all odds, stacked up against them, and they want to quit, give up. Obviously, quitting is not an option. What advice would you give that person right now?
When you're at the very bottom, you have nowhere else to go but the top. So
Right, right,
when everything's against you, when the weight of the world, I'd say really don't quit. We've kind of referenced, the frat life a little bit, but I'm an Alpha. I pledged at Hampton, and one of the poems we learned was "Don't quit." And a lot of things that I learned online I use daily. I
hmm
I I recite "Don't quit" in my mind all the time, right? When things go wrong, it sometimes will. It's that like that line probably is my favorite. Um, but just keep going. Um, Another thing that I'm really working on is the person that you dream of being, the person that you want to become. What would they do right now, right? And so for me, I'm always thinking like, what does the Brandon that's in like the best shape of his life look like? What does he do? He wakes up early. He goes to the gym. He eats
right,
healthy. So every day I'm emulating what I believe my best self would be doing.
right.
Um,
That's
and,
good,
and
man.
ultimately not quitting and giving yourself grace, right? There are good
Yeah,
days and bad. Some days I wake up early, some days I don't, right?
right.
Some days I eat great, some days I don't. But, oftentimes I think we talk to ourselves really negatively,
Hmm.
and you would never, ever allow someone to talk to you the way you talk to yourself. So don't
Right.
talk to yourself like that, right? I definitely believe there are power in thoughts, manifestations. But yeah, just having grace with yourself. So yeah, things are tough right now, but know that you never have to relive this day over,
Mm.
and continue to move forward, to achieve the the greatness, the success, the life that you want. And it is certainly attainable. I mean, there's, the quote, I forget, it's the president says, you tell me you can or you can't, either way you're right. Like you can, certainly can, and no offense to anyone, but I'm sure you could think of someone who's in a position that you are, who is not smarter, it's not as smart as you. Just use them as your example and be like, if they could do it, I could do it.
Right.
And just keep on grinding it and make it happen. And, every day, it's compound effect. Every day you're closer than you were the previous
Love
day.
that book, man. You talking about, Dan, man, I just read that a couple of weeks ago. Compound Effect. Shout outs to Dan Hardy, I think is his name. Man, powerful, man. Appreciate you, sharing your story, man, and just encouraging the people to go after what they want in life, man. Shout outs to you. Shout outs to Erica. Keep doing your thing out in the DC area, man. And I was gonna say something when you said best shape of your life and eating good. Super Bowl wasn't too long ago, and I remember, we went to your fam's house up in Jacksonville. So I was like, look, I know if he go to Jacksonville, he ain't gonna be eating healthy because they throw it down over there. Yeah, man, that's what's up, man. But man, shout outs to y'all, bro. I appreciate you, man. And listen, we're going to probably bring you back at some other point, man. But right now, man, we appreciate you laying down some nuggets, and we'll be keeping in touch, my brother.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me, man. Take care.
All right. Peace.